water. They allow the water to spread and go a bit slower. Use a lot less soil disturbance. They're a lot easier to install and a lot easier for a grader to maintain. It's basically because they allow the water to spread out and takes the velocity out of the water. And in this case, the natural profile of the ground is away from us, so the drains only need to be 4 or 5 metres long. One of the traditional ways of doing it was to start from the top and work down the slope with the grader blade. So when they got down the bottom, they had a blade full of dirt and they left it there, lost it, down the end of the drain. Well, if that drain is effective, or if it works, the water flows are going to take soil down. With machinery, we have the ability to be able to work up. So if we're going to put in a drain, we should always start from the end of the drain and work back up to the roadway. We're bringing soil back on to help the formed road, and the last bit of soil is actually like a training bank. It'll help steer the water away from the roadway. Instead of being lost down the bottom, we're bringing it back up and assisting that initial training bank to get the water off the road. Another very common method is to put in what's called a catch drain. Now that catch drain is designed to intercept the water flows before they get to the roadway. In this case, it's a V drain between the roadway and the crest of the ridge. Now, I'm dead set against these catch drains because they're invariably put down on relatively steep slopes. No protection, no maintenance, no method employed of slowing down the water flows or anything like that. If they work, in a very short period of time you eventually find they're badly eroded and almost impossible to do anything with them. The only reason the catch drain is put in is to save time in putting in a floodway, as an invert or a culvert or a floodway or a diversion bank, something like that. And I would rather see a series of floodways put in and let the water come across or under the road and get rid of it. Let it reinstate the natural flow direction as often and as frequently as possible. And do not go down the track of putting in catch drains. In the absence of a real grader, a real man's toy, I've gone and borrowed my grandson's little toy grader. Because one of the things in the video footage, it's very hard to pick up actually how the grader's working. A bit like watching paint dry, the grader going backwards and forwards. So I'll try to set up this little model example. In this case, I've surveyed the sill, that 10 metre sill with these two pegs. We've got an eroded water course flowing down through here, and with the end of the bank over in there. So I'm going to start with the grader. I'm trying to work the soil through. And one of the things I do is when I first start, I start a couple of metres in off those pegs. Because if there's a stump or a rock or something there, that grader could jump over and hit that. I do not disturb below those two pegs. So I can take all this country above the pegs, but I try not to disturb below them. So I start working the soil up, taking sure that I don't go too far forward. In most cases, 2 or 3 metres past the end of the sill is sufficient. I start stockpiling that soil there. And depending on the type of soil, I might have to do that 7 or 8 times to get enough soil there. So each time moving over another 15, 20 centimetres, moving over, cutting the bank down, moving over onto those two pegs, and all the time trying to get the depth. Once I've got the soil there, I adjust my blade the other way, and then I can start running it out across the roadway, across the eroded channel. Again, taking sure to lose the soil in the eroded area. That's the eroded area through here. I want a fair bit of soil in there to compensate for the compaction. I've got to try and get the width as a rollover bank. I've also got to get the height, allowing that 30% compaction. So I keep doing that process until I've cleaned the loose soil away, and then I start again, pushing more soil up to where I want it. And in the case that I've got insufficient soil up in there, there's no reason why I can't turn and bring the grader up and over and actually drop the soil off where I want it. Drop the soil in the erosion channel to speed things up a little bit. I don't have to take it all the way through. I can back up and just keep bringing soil up and turn the grader in to drop it to ensure I get a good amount of fill in the actual roadway. In the final passes, then I can adjust my blade, run right along the whole bank, sweeping any loose soil up to that. That's the ultimate goal, is to get to the high end of the bank, but I don't have to do that until I'm almost finished. Again, I back up, adjust my blade, run up and over the bank, which I'm helping compact it. And then I start to shape the bank, again taking that, any loose soil is going to the far end, working that soil up. So then I finish up, I've got a shaped bank, bit artistic license here, but I've got a shaped bank, it's been compacted, it's all rolled, and I've finished up on the high side of that, of the far surveyed peg. We've now selected a site for a bank. We've found a safe area to end the bank. It's a good grassy area or good stable area. We've driven up and down the slope. We've assessed the length of the slope. We've worked out our slope percentages, but we're now going to install a bank. In this case, the first thing we're going to do is to establish the contour line.
181, keep going up.
I work between 5 and 10 metres by eye. The average bank is 18 to 25 metres in length.
179.
I don't care how effective or how conscientious a person is, when they're doing by eye, they're only 35% effective.
177. We go up. We've done much more.
I claim to be a little bit better than that because I've done so much of it. I'm 50% effective. But that means that 1 and 2 banks, if you have to go back and redo it,
Yeah, no, good.
and spend time and money, it's not fully effective. It's also taking away time and money or fuel that could have been spent in putting in more.
Oh, fuck. Spot on.
That's it. You just peg the bank. So we set up our tripod, our level. We take a reading, in this case, again, might be that 1.5. Now, somewhere in that 10 metre radius, we're going to try to find that 1.5 again. And in this particular instance, we don't, and that 1.5 down here, it may mean that we're looking at the ground and having a false interpretation of it. The water flows might be coming this way, water flows might be coming there. It means that we have to pick up and move over the roadway. But in this case, we've got good uniform soil. We come across here, we find that corresponding point of 1.5. What would happen if we had a baobab tree or a sacred site in that particular area, the harvest area where we're going to dig our soil from? If we don't want to disturb that tree or that sacred site, we then just pull the whole lot out, move up or down the slope 20 metres and start again. We set up again. That previous site was just a little bit of research work. We found for whatever reason it wasn't suitable. We start again at 1.5, whatever, again at 1.5. There's nothing in there to prohibit our work. So then we proceed over the roadway, over the fence line. In this case, the bank is somewhere between 15 and 25 metres, double-side fence line or roadway. We come over there, we've already at 1.5. We're going to find the high end of the bank now. This first reading we took, this 1.5, whilst it's the start of the excavation or the borrow pit or the sill, it is also the bottom end of our bank. We now move over the roadway, over the fence line. We're going to look for this, the high end of the bank, which we're looking for 145, remembering that 5 for 25 centimetres. This bank is somewhere between 15 and 25 metres in length. We've moved over the roadway, we now look for 145. So that first reading is the end of the bank. Our third reading is the top end of the bank, and that's where our bank is installed. We've surveyed a diversion bank on a 0.2% slope. Basically that means that we've got 5 centimetres rise from that peg there to the peg behind over there. The idea is the water comes down the road, will hit the bank, flow back this way, and by the time I'm finished here we'll have a pit in here or a hole, or what we call a sill, and that sill will be on that 10 metre face. This whole area in behind me is the potential harvest area. I can take out all the soil in here to whatever depth I like, depending on the size the bank needed. In this case it's for four-wheel drive vehicles. Not very often a truck comes down here, so the bank won't have to be that big. When I start, I'm going to start inside that line with the grader blade, the toe of the grader blade. I'll rip a series of trenches from in behind back towards those pegs, move the soil forward, change the blade, cut back down and keep working it down on a level floor, and eventually I'll work up towards those 2 pegs. The reason I stay away from the pegs is if there's a stump or a big rock, it could throw the grade around a little bit, something like that. but I can disturb as much as I like above, but I will not go below those pegs because I want to finish up with a straight, level, clean face. So as the water flows into that hole, it'll deposit any debris, any silts and sands, leaves, back into that, so it's self-healing. When the hole is full of water, the water will then spill out over that face through this good grassed area and revert back to the original natural drainage. We've achieved our purpose. We've bent the water off the roadway instead of following down the road and creating further damage. We've taken the force out of it. We've still got the same volume of water, but we haven't got the velocity. We've just completed this diversion bank, probably 18 metres long. It's about 5 metres wide, and I'd say almost half a metre in height. There's a bit of moisture there now, and I've driven over the grader. It is going to settle, but in dry soil, so it can settle by up to 30%.
When installing a bank, the degree of slope to the water's flow determines the angle that the bank is installed across the road. And that angle is at its most efficient when roughly at right angles to the water's natural flow. This angle allows the bank to take the velocity out of the water and to steer it off the road, ensuring that the water's natural flow is reinstated with the same volume of water but at a reduced velocity.
Another thing, if there is a little bit of height early in the piece, like this now, the onset of the wet season, if it's still fairly high after the wet season, the first time a grader comes along and maintenance grading, they can actually knock the top off a little bit. Although I'd prefer to advise the grader driver to go wider, pick up more soil and drop it at the ramp, and not adjust the height of the bank, but try to build up the ramps. And over a period of years, the width of the bank should almost be double, or the height won't change all that much. Again, I could have made that bank a lot bigger. You can see here I've only taken out probably 20 centimetres, 8 or 9 inches of soil.
A hole in this location supplies a convenient catchment point for any debris and soil being carried by the flow, which may then in turn be recycled in subsequent years and dug back out for use in the bank's maintenance.
This can go as deep as we like. Well, it depends on how much soil we needed. In this case it's 10 metres long, but there's no reason why we couldn't go 20 metres long and wider, but as long as we're working back up the slope, as long as we don't disturb below that.
This hole should always be dug with a level face at its lower side at 90 degrees to the water's natural flow and should be about 10 metres in length. This is to ensure that after the bank has reduced the velocity of the flow and the hole contained much of its debris and loose soil, that the remaining water is left to trickle over this face, reinstating the water's natural flow.
The key part to this exercise here is ensuring that the opening where the water flows are going to come off the roadway and turn and come into this bank. This opening here in this case now, slight gradual slope, but I've got it open up here for probably 4 or 5 metres. There's no obstructions for the water to flow to be able to turn off the road and come into this sill here, as I said before, momentarily settled, and then flows off that back through the country, back to the original drainage. We've selected the site for our bank. The lay of the land will determine the angle the bank is placed at. So we can pick the side of the bank, but we have no input into the angle the bank takes. So in this case, we've assessed the situation. We know that we're just over the crest of the ridge. If we're going to do anything at all, we'll start at the top of the bank.
In this instance, it has been decided to install 2 diversion banks approximately 200 metres apart. When digging multiple banks, it is always crucial to install the bank at the top of the flow first. This ensures that if a heavy downpour is experienced before the installations are complete, that the intensity of the water flow being intercepted by this higher bank will have been at a reduced amount to that would have been intercepted by a bank first installed at a point further along the track, and thus at least 1/3 of the intensity of the water flow will have been reduced before it was able to resume its flow towards the washout further down the track.
If we have a machinery breakdown, or if it rains, or we have to leave for whatever reason, we can't get back. If we started down the bottom where the washout is, we've started putting our bank across here, that if it rains, that bank may not handle it. So what we do is always start at the top of the slope and work our way down.
One problem that is encountered through the installation of an angled bank on a roadway, however, is the difficulty that it causes for road vehicles, particularly road trains that have to pass over it. The answer here is to build the bank at the correct angle to encounter the water's flow, and then to reroute the road to encounter the bank face head-on and over before zigzagging back on the other side to re-engage its predetermined path.
You've now reached the conclusion of our production and hopefully understand the basics of surveying and installing a diversion bank.
For further information on soil erosion control, see SoilSave's Erosion Control Workshop Manuals or contact VRDCA on 08 89 710 368.
And all we can do at this point in time is wish you all the best with your erosion control work.